Hey there, Hofstra fans, and welcome to this week's edition of the WB Mason Coaches Report right here on GoHofstra.com. I'm Mike Sullivan, joined as always this week by head coach of the Hofstra women's basketball program, Krista Kilburn-Steveskey. Coach, how's everything going today?
It's going well. A little snowy, but making it.
A little bit of a week and a half off here until your next game against Harvard, the last time out against St. Joseph's, of course. But with this time off, what's the approach this week? Of course, the players have finals week, but in terms of preparing for Harvard and also working on some other things, how do you approach this time?
Right. I mean, it was good to give them, they had a good day on the weekend here to start studying up a little bit, and it always crunch time, a little stress for finals. Harvard just finished theirs this week, so it is what it is. But really things about us, attacking a lot of things that people are doing defensively against us based on our personnel. So we had a really good practice on Saturday, and so it's really, as always, about us, but really strategic in just ways that we're going to attack Harvard.
Is this a situation where you can work on some of the things you've observed all season long that need to be worked on, whereas in conference play you may not have that luxury?
Right, it is. Individual based too as well. But spend a lot of time with splits between post and guards, and just really trying to help us being able to counter, how folks are playing us and the scouting report that people have on us.
Evaluate the team for me at this point in the season, really approaching conference play, only a couple of non-conference games left. Have they played as up to your expectation, or have you been surprised by anything?
Obviously, I'm happy with, how we're beginning to progress a little bit. I think we have a lot more chemistry when you're playing a lot of people, trying to get rhythm with folks, but, it is a team that has depth. And it isn't like one person has made, this grave separation so far from the other. I'm hoping if people are ability to separate, they need to be separating. That's what you're doing in non-conference. But it is a nice feeling to have where you have a lot of options. So it's getting them to be able, to play with the people. Every day I mix up all different types of groups going against each other so they can get used to playing, because they're going to be playing with certain fives at a time. So that part, I think is still a work in progress. Defensively is always a little bit ahead of where we are offensively. People just trying to figure out shot selection, not shooting as soon in the shot clock if that's not in your wheelhouse. Us, attacking a little bit better and sharing the ball a little bit better. So I think that's always a little thorn in the side. But, for the most part, we're doing some good things.
Let's start to look at Harvard now, Coach. Coming up this Saturday on the road. Last two seasons, played them both here in Hempstead. Yeah. 2 years ago, that WNIT loss. Last season, another one that came down to the wire. You still have some of that skin left over from those couple of losses?
You do. It's time. It's time. Again, but they're dynamic. They they have a lot of options. They run a lot of different sets. They're have a lot of defensive schemes. To try to combat what we bring to the table. So and on the road. I was a little pumped up last coach's show, because we had 18 total turnovers, and honestly, 16 were unforced. And you can say, obviously, St. Joe's nerves, you're at St. Joe's, but if you're dribbling it off your own foot with no defender, those are an unforced turnover, So granted, the things that can make you lead into that point, but, hopefully we get a little bit of that jitters out, a little bit of big time jitters out of the playing team that, as talented as St. Joe's, and now you're playing another talented team like Harvard. So, we have to play better. We have to play better in practice. So something I said to you on the coach's show yesterday on the radio was like, where all of a sudden, whatever you're doing in the game, you're having the mirror of that you're doing in practice when you're doing situational. So, just a little bit more attention to detail, calling that out a lot more, not, getting them to understand the value of that. And I think that's what we coaches always do. We're trying to let them know that practice is making you prepared for the game. So I think that's a constant struggle.
The Crimson 7-3 on the season. Individually, they have some top flight talent. We'll get to them in a second. But averaging close to 80 points per game, but they're giving up over 70.
Right.
So what are you expecting to see in terms of a type of a game, pace of a game coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, I think similar to what they're doing. I mean, they're more explosive in transition. They're different than years past. They're trying to create easy buckets, and they got a really strong inside game. So they're certainly getting out there, and they got some kids that were 9 for 19 against Sacred Heart, I think, for the 3. So they've got some options, and it's going to be a tough battle on their court.
Let's start with the team. You 6'4", big, down low, British national team player. You saw her last season, you'll see her again this year, nearly averaging a double-double. How do you match up with her inside?
Well, she didn't play last year here against us too. So this will be our first time actually going against her, and she's pretty imposing on film. She is not a block player anymore. She can sweep and go. She's running the court. She's breaking the press in the back. The entire team looks toward her like nothing I've ever seen before. I mean, it's almost like 4 players running down the court and looking to see where she is. So she's obviously, the go-to for them. So that makes it really interesting. But she's getting the job done, doing a good job. And again, more, she's more diverse now.
From a coaching perspective, how do undersized players going against her, such as Ruth Sherrill, Alo's go closer of a matchup to her than Sherrill is, but how do you match up with her in terms of rebounding the basketball and trying to contain her offensively?
Well, I think what she's doing really is not necessarily even for her size at 6'4". It's not like she is backing folks down and towering over people. Where she becomes a logistical nightmare guarding is that how well she's playing off the ball and off the bounce with the ball. And, being able to, at 6'4", playing like a guard makes life a little bit, difficult. So her range is improved. So, she's going to be tough on the block and tough manipulating on the block, but she's really strong off the block. So, she makes you have to play a pretty straight up, diverse game, move inside your feet, and then you got to box her out. So, it's going to be tough.
With all this being said, they still have their leading scorer in Christine Clark, nearly 20 points per game, really a dynamic player on the perimeter. Give us a little scouting report on her. How do you contain her?
It's funny, she's been out, so we're assuming that this is going to be her first game back. So, it's hard watching her last few games without her in it.
Right.
So that's going to change a little bit. We've gone back in the archives a little bit, but, she's going to come out and have been pretty well rested, obviously, and having a lot of games off. So, we're expecting, obviously, her to come out flying. So, we've got our hands full of containing her and putting a strong defensive player on her and not letting her break loose. So this will be her first game back.
Entering St. Joe's, you talked about wanting to get a victory on the road against a very high-quality opponent. You have another opportunity coming up this Saturday against Harvard. How do you accomplish that and get a win?
Yeah, I mean, you're hoping that from film, from explaining with the young kids about, you can't play this way and hope to be in the game. We need to cut that in half. These are the kind of games, we're not saying that you play, most $1 million, most incredible game you've ever played, but you certainly can't do, those things. So the little things, stressing upon the little things, stressing upon being disciplined, the same song and dance, but hopefully, their experience of the teams that we've been playing, kind of comes to light a lot more, and then obviously a little more strategic, attack against Harvard. But we got to take care of the ball. The things that we can't do on the floor with them is that they have to take care of the basketball. They need to share the basketball, and rebound a lot better. I felt like we didn't rebound as well, in the last game at all, obviously. So if you take that, because how you shoot on the road is always a big question mark. So if you can limit your turnovers, give yourself obviously more possessions, you can even obviously in rebound can also help in the category if you're not shooting on your own rims. So it's like you got those 3 basic strong categories. So we've got to rebound the ball better and take care of the ball. So that's going to be our big push in the rest of this week.
The Hofstra Pride women's basketball team hits the court again on the road this Saturday in Boston to take on Harvard. For head coach Krista Kilburn-Steveskey, I'm Mike Sullivan. Thanks for tuning in to the WBB Coaches Report.